Okay, let's take a look at countdown 5 weeks. So if we look at number 1, it says look at the following model. We have a model with tenths and a model with hundredths. And it looks like we're going to add them together. And part A says write a problem that would require you to use this model to find its solution. So if we look at this model, it looks like we have 3/10. Okay, so the fraction 3/10. We could write that as 0.3. And in the second model, it looks like we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 1, 2, 3, 4, 64 hundredths, which as a decimal is 0.64. So it says write a problem that would require you to use this model to find its solution. So we could write either 3/10 plus 64 hundredths equals something, or we could write it in decimal form, 0.3 plus 0.64, so 3/10 plus 64 hundredths equals something. Okay. And it says solve the problem you wrote, include a diagram and labels. Well, here's our diagrams, right? We have the models. If we wanted to draw pictures, we could for that, okay? But if we solve it, let's do our work over here. If we solve 3/10 plus 64 hundredths in fractions, we would have 3/10 is really equal to, we could make it into hundredths by multiplying the numerator and denominator by 10, and we would get 30 hundredths. So we would say 30 hundredths plus 64 hundredths. And if we add our numerators, 30 plus 64, we get 94, and our denominator is hundredths. Okay, so we could do that, or we could add decimals. We could say 3/10 plus 64 hundredths. And if we line up our decimal points and add, we can annex that 0 after the 3. And then we add 0 plus 4 is 4. 3 plus 6 is 9. Bring our decimal point straight down. 0 plus 0 is 0. And we have our answer as 94 hundredths, or 0.94. And if you wrote it as a fraction as an answer and simplified it, we could simplify that answer and we could get a simplified answer as 50ths, perhaps you got your answer as, or because both of these are even, we could have divided by 2. But this would be acceptable for an answer. Okay. Number 2 says Ursula sold 47 copies sold 47 copies of her new app for $26 each. How much money did Ursula make? Use the numbers below to fill in the area model. You may not use all the numbers. So 47 times 26 is really what our problem is, but area model doesn't have us solve it like we've solved it in the past. So we're going to take the 47, and you can choose how you're going to split it up, which number goes on top, which one goes on the side. But you would take let's see here what they give us for choices. Well, 26 we're going to separate into 20 plus 6, right? So we use that and that. 47, they might have made a mistake here because we should have a 40, which I don't see, plus a 7. So, I wonder if this was supposed to be a 40. Okay, but we would have a 40 plus a 7, because then this would be 20 times 40, and that part would be 4 times 2 is 8 with 2 zeros, so that gives me the 800. And then this one would be 20 times 7, which would be 140. Okay, that gives me that option. The bottom would be 40 times 6. 4 times 6 is 24. with a 0, so 240. And the bottom right would be 6 times 7, which is 42. So, oh, I bet this one was supposed to be the 400 or the 40 there. So, we would have 800 plus 140 plus 240 plus 42. But it does not say to solve it. It just says fill in the area model. And if we see 47 times 26, we would split up 40 plus 7 to make 47, 20 plus 6 to make 26. Find our multiplication parts that fill in each part of the area model. Okay. And in this case, there were mistakes in the numbers that they gave us to fill in, but we would not ever use the 36 and we would not ever use the 24. All right, let's flip it to the back side. Number 3 says, Ruby has read 85 hundredths of a book. What fraction of the book does Ruby have left to read? Write your answer in simplest form. Well, 85 hundredths is like this, right? So if one whole book we could write like this. Here's my whole book. I could take off 0.85 and just subtract decimals. Or I could take one whole book, 100 100ths, and take off 85 hundredths. Okay, but if the question is in decimal form, the answer we probably want is in decimal form. So let's do the subtraction. We can't take 0 from 5. Or if we have 0, we can't take away 5. We can't take 0 minus 8. So we're going to borrow from the 1, make it a 0. The 0 next door becomes a 10. Now I can borrow from the 10 and make it a 9. So the 0 in my hundredths place becomes a 10. Now 10 take away 5 is 5. 9 take away 8 is 1. Bring my decimal straight down, and I have 0 in my whole numbers. So what fraction of the book does she have left to read? Well, she would have 15 hundredths, okay, which we could write like that. We could also write it 15 hundredths like this, which is what we would get if we would subtract. Now, notice it says what fraction. So they probably want our answer in fraction form, in which case, if we need to simplify, we can divide both my numerator and denominator by 5. And 15 divided by 5, because they have those facts in common, the 5 factor in common, 15 divided by 5 is 3. 100 divided by 5, if I count up by 5s, I get 20. So she really has 3/20ths of the book left to read, okay, which we don't see if we write it in decimal form. Okay, let's take a look at number 4. Number 4 is a little bit of a logic problem. It says it snowed 5 times in December with snowfalls of 7 inches, 2 inches, 6 inches, 11 inches, and 5 inches. So we have these 5 different snowfall totals. Use the information below to fill in the table. So they give us a table, date and the snow in inches, and 5 dates in December. So it says the smallest snow amount was on December 16th. So we need to find December 16th, and we are going to write the smallest total. And of these, 2 is the smallest number. 2 is smaller than 7, 5, 11, and 6. So December 16th would have been 2. We're done with that one. The greatest, so done with that first one, the greatest snow amount was on December 30th. So the biggest, the greatest, which was 11, was on December 30th. Done with that one. The snow on December 28th was less than the snow on December 14th. Okay, so we have 7, 6, and 5 left, right? So now we have some logic to do. The snow on December 28th was less than the snow on December 14th. So the 28th was less than the 14th. And it says the snow on December 5th was less than that on December 28th. So the 5th's snow was less than the 28th's, and the 28ths was less than the 14ths. So my littlest amount left would be the 5th, which would have been 5. Then the 28ths would have been 6, and then the 14ths would have been 7. Let's see if that makes sense. The snow on December 28th was less than the snow on the 14th. So here's my 28th. 6 inches is less than 7. That works out. And the snow on December 5th was less than the snow on the 28th. So is 5 less than 6? Yes, it is. So then we have logically filled in our amounts. Number 5 says, which of the following is equivalent to 4/10? Select all that apply. And they give us some choices to choose from and determine. And they say select all that apply. So we could have 2 answers, 3 answers, or 4 answers, or maybe just 1. So if we want to find equal answers to 4/10, we need to know all we can about 4/10. Well, 4/10 could be, let's see here. Could I make it into hundredths? If I multiply both my numerator and denominator by 10, I could get 40 hundredths, right? Could I simplify it as well and make, instead of 40 hundredths, could I divide by the common factor of 2 for each? And could it be equal to 2/5? Sure, so 2/5 is 4/10 is 40 hundredths. Okay, and I see I have some fraction answers, but I also have some decimal answers. So to write 4/10 as a decimal, that would be 4/10 like that, or 40 hundredths is 0.40. So now let's solve each part and see. What would it be equal to? Well, 25 hundredths plus 15 hundredths. Let's do the math down here. Stack our decimals and add them. And if I stack them, lining up my decimal point, I bring my decimal point straight down into my answer. I have 5 plus 5 is 10. Regroup my 1. 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 1 is 4. And my decimal I brought straight down, and 0 plus 0 is 0. So is that equal to 4/10? Well, yes, because 4/10 in decimal form is equal to 40 hundredths. So equivalent means equal. So any of these options could work. So yes, that one works. My next one is 2/5 equal to 4/10. Well, we found that at the beginning, right? If we simplify 4/10, we get 2/5. So yes, that second one works. How about the third one? 1/10 plus 3 hundredths. Well, let's line up our decimals. 1/10 plus 3 hundredths, 0.03. Annex the 0 after the 1 and add. 0 plus 3 is 3. 1 plus 0 is 1. Bring my decimal straight down, and 0 plus 0 is 0. Is 13 hundredths equal to 4/10, which is 40 hundredths? No. So that cannot be a good choice. And how about the last one? We have 12 hundredths plus 28 hundredths. Well, in order to add these, I need to either make them both fractions or both decimals. So let's make them decimals. 0.12 is 12 hundredths plus 28 hundredths. And if I stack them and add them, 2 plus 8 is 10. 1 plus 1 plus 2 is 4. Bring my decimal straight down. 0 plus 0 is 0. So again, we have 40 hundredths, which is equal to 4/10. So the last option works as well.